Okay, hopefully this works since Restream decided to crap out today. Let's see how quickly I can get all this going. All right, one person's here. Let's see how many people we can get before we start all this nonsense. Yeah, I went to start it for the last 10 minutes and it kept starting for 10 seconds and then failing and saying, oh, try restarting or contact whoever the fuck. Actually, I don't know. I made it. I might as well use the thumbnail. All right. So this is going to be almost the full thing. So I got it in like a 6-hour thing, basically. So I had to edit it down from 6 hours to currently what we're working with is like 2 hours and 45-ish minutes. I cut out a lot of the dead air where just nobody talked for like 30 seconds. They took a recess of 10 minutes. I cut that out. I cut out a lot of, I believe it was jury instructions that were just kind of dumb and pointless. But I did leave in some good go between for both of them with the jury. Let me start this real quick. God, I have to figure out how to use StreamYard again. Share screen. Eric Martin Jury Trial Part 1. All right, and here we go. I'll be right back.
Your Honor, David Recap from the City of Taylor.
All right. And for the defense?
Good morning, Your Honor. Attorney Josh Hadley. I appointed counsel on behalf of the defendant, Mr. Eric Martin. Briefly, Your Honor, I'd like to make a record. We were before this court last week, and there was a motion, a pro se motion filed by Mr. Martin to have me replaced as counsel. I was never served a copy of that. Your court graciously did send a copy. I had that chance to review it. Your Honor, I would just again state that if Mr. Martin and I have a fundamental disagreement as to trial strategy, pursuant to People v. Charles O. Williams, 386 Mich. 565, 1972, good cause exists for a substitution of counsel. If there's a difference of opinion between the defendant and the appointed counsel with regard to a fundamental trial tactic, as well as going to People v. Bass, 88 Mich. 793, 1979, good cause can also be found when there's obstruction of communication breakdown. Now, my recollection, Your Honor, your basis last time in denying the motion was really how late in the game the motion was. It was going to be prejudicial, essentially, and disruptive of the judicial process.
That's correct.
If I recall correctly, one of the other concerns we addressed was the concept of Mr. Martin's belief, which I think we've now clarified, that I'm not restricting him from speaking in any way, shape, or form today.
Nope.
Very well. Your Honor, I would also like, I believe, again, I don't want to put words into this court's mouth. My understanding is my role today, as if Mr. Martin wants to advance the defense that he has selected, I'm here to aid him with the understanding of the Michigan court rules, the Michigan rules of evidence, and all federal and state applicable law.
That's correct.
Very good, Your Honor. Okay, because of that, again, I think I just, for Mr. Martin and myself and this court and the people be on the same page. For these reasons, I will not be making an opening statement, or I will reserve an opportunity for a closing argument.
And I will say this, I'm going to go ahead and give the ground rules to Mr. Martin so that he understands. Mr. Martin, you are lead counsel. You are your own lead counsel, and you choose to be representing yourself. Is that correct?
To present myself, not to represent. I am myself, but
Listen,
I'm not presenting myself.
I'm going to tell you this right now. I'm going to say it one time. I'm not going to sit here and split hairs on meanings of words. To represent oneself or present oneself means the same thing. You are speaking on your own behalf. Yes?
Right, yeah.
Right, very good. Both of them mean the same thing. So we're not going to play semantics because literally
I love it that Judge Slavin basically went full father and was just like, listen here, you little shit. This again is going to just drag out for the next hour and 5 minutes. The second half is going to drag out as well, and then there's going to be a ton of good bits. So just bear with me. This is going to be long. I know my last live stream, the one I tried to set up for 1 o'clock, that didn't work. It said like 3+ hours. Yes, it's going to take 3+ hours.
I'm gonna walk into the source. So I'm not gonna do that. And I'm gonna shut that down because you're just gonna waste time. And I'm not here to stall and waste time. I'm here to make sure your due process and you have a fair trial. And as part of that fair trial, you're not gonna try to disrupt the proceedings by either stalling, playing some antics with, well, it's present instead of represent. It literally has present in it. Represent just means to redo it again. That's all. And so every time you get up, you're just representing yourself again. You're representing is what it means. That's what represent.
Try to make up the semantics of the.
So anyway, so here's the thing. You're going to be the lead counsel, so you're going to do your opening statement, things like that. You're going to follow the court rules. You're going to follow the same rules of evidence that everybody else follows. Mr. Greco is not going to have any advantage over you. You're not going to have any advantage over him. If you literally have a legal encyclopedia sitting next to you, someone who is very confident in the laws and the court rules and the statutes and the rules of evidence. So if there's an objection or things like that, I will pause. So that if you think that there's an objection and you think that there is something like that, I'm also going to ask you, because you have someone who is so astute at trial practice, if your co-counsel, are you giving your co-counsel permission to say objection when he sees something objectionable that you don't recognize? Because I'm just saying you don't have a Juris Doctorate, you haven't formally studied the rules of evidence in a formalized setting. You could have done so online or anywhere else by library or by book or whatever. I don't know that you have or haven't, but I don't want to presume. But I just want to know for the flow of things, because if someone says something, they're going to keep asking questions unless somebody jumps in with an objection. If you don't recognize the objection, but he does, are you giving him permission to assist you by saying, hey, hold up, that was objectionable?
Yeah, as long as he's going by the law and not doing nothing that's going to violate my rights.
Well, I just want to know. I mean, and I'm making sure that this is your protection. He's there for your protection. I'm asking this question because just from a flow of trial standpoint, somebody who knows what's going on would be, because I do it all the time, sometimes sitting here. Like someone will ask a question and I kind of I'm watching, and I would have said objection if I was the other side and they don't object. And I don't even know if they didn't pay attention or they didn't know, or I don't know. But I can't do that for you. I have somebody here who is very astute at that. Are you giving him the power? I know you want to speak for yourself, but this is the one situation where you have to respond like right now. You have to block, you have to do something. And if you don't recognize it, I want to make sure that you are giving him permission for him to do that. Is that okay?
I'm going to do it, but I also reserve my right to also make.
No, sure. I mean, and all I'm saying is I'm going to have him call the timeout. I'm going to have him till the timeout flag.
ATB Films gifted 10 memberships. Thank you very much.
By saying objection. And you two of you can talk about why it's an objection and then speak to that. Because if obviously you didn't see it or recognize it, he did. So there's probably a reason why, because he's not just going to throw out the word objection for every little thing. You're also not going to throw out the word objection for every little thing. Because if you say, I'll give you 3. If you come up with 3 frivolous objections in a row because you don't know the court rules, then I'm going to turn the case over to him because he knows how to do it. You understand what I'm saying? I got no problem with you and your closing argument, your opening argument. Sure. If you want to cross-examine a witness, sure. But it better be within the rules. It better be as to the elements. It better be as to the case, not anything and some other tangent about anything else. It has to pertain to relevance. Because every single piece of evidence, I'm just going to give you a quick update on the rules of evidence. The first rule, Rule 401, is that all evidence must be relevant. So if it has nothing to do with the elements of driving on a revoked license, I don't want to hear it. If it's anything to do with bias, yes, you can go into bias because that is one of the things that you can bring up under Rule 403. But under Rule 403, there's also overly repetitive evidence. So if you're going to ask the same question 20 times, just in 20 different ways, you're going to get an objection, and I'm going to sustain an objection. You understand what I'm saying?
Comprehend.
Okay, very good. That's all. And I just want to make sure so that because everybody who's here, who's going to be in the jury, They have a right to serve as jurors. And I'm not going to have them sit here for an extra hour just because you want to play semantics. And now you're violating their rights perhaps by doing that. But I want to make sure that you have full representation. I want to make sure you have full due process. I want to make sure you have access to an attorney. And again, I'm going to ask you, are you knowingly and voluntarily choosing to not take house counsel? You're going to represent yourself as lead counsel?
Again, like I said, before.
Just a yes or no. I mean, are you representing yourself as lead counsel or knowingly and voluntarily?
I reserve my right to say what I want to say and help myself in the case, but it's also okay for him to, also want him to do his duty and offer me the effective.
So that's what I'm saying. It's like, I don't want to leave him in a position where he doesn't know exactly what his duty is. He's either lead counsel or he's just a helper who's just going to sit there. Unless you ask him a question, he's not going to do anything. That's why I'm trying to ascertain exactly what it is you want from him. Officer Rose, good morning, sir. I'm well. I'm always well.
Okay, well, first remember, Slavin, you said yourself, you said it was okay, Judge Slavin, you said it was okay that I say what I want to say, and you say it basic. So I don't see what the questions.
But the questions aren't so much for you. The questions are basically because I want to define.
I have a solution. That should cut a little bit of time off. I know I think I already did this in the second part on my editor, but I didn't do it on this one. So hopefully we'll cut a few minutes off here.
Find the parameters of what your co-counsel is going to be required to do. Because I'm not going to have a situation where you're like, well, he didn't say objection on this one time. He could have had an objection and now I'm going to sue him. Because you're basically asking me to appoint him sort of with one hand tied behind his back. He's either going to be able to do his job to the fullest extent and represent you as a zealous advocate that he is, or he's going to be an encyclopedia of legal knowledge sitting there only waiting for you to take the book off the shelf. I did create that one situation where you could let him carte blanche. If he thinks there's an objection, say objection, which will just basically be a timeout. Then you can group or powwow, whatever you want to call it, about what that objection would be. And then we'll proceed and I'll make my ruling on it. But other than that, he's not going to jump in, chime in, any of that. Is that what because you're running the show on the representation, correct?
Well, yes, but I was going to say,
there's no.
I want to give up my right to effective assistance of counsel.
Right. Well, that's what I'm saying. You're either going to accept it or you're waiving it. There's no half waiving it. You understand what I'm saying? And I'm just making sure what it is because I don't mind whichever way you choose.
Based on what he just told me, I should say lead counsel based on not just because what he told me, but
so based on first.
Like I said, I'm going to do my job.
Hold on, because I don't want you to say because I don't want to hear whatever private conversation you had between the two of you. Because I know you just said the words based on what he just said. I didn't want you to say whatever because that's private. And no one can make anybody testify what you two talk about. That's privileged. If you say to the court or if you say to anybody anything he said, it removes and washes away all privilege to it. Okay, so I'm just letting you know that so you understand. So any conversations you have with counsel, even though he's not technically counsel, but he's your assistant counsel, any conversations you have are privileged. So unless you say, well, he just told me this, oh, now you just went through it. I'm just trying to lay these ground rules so that we don't run into this during the trial anytime. So that you understand and agree. And I just want to make sure that you are knowingly and voluntarily choosing to represent yourself, knowing that I would have given you full access to an attorney. You're choosing not to take that access and you want to represent yourself. That's correct?
I'm choosing to present myself, but also I'm not waiving my right to be helped by him because I still have the right to be. So I still
okay. So if he sees any objections, he can do objections, but other than that, you'll just stop and ask.
And like I said, then
okay.
We can't. I ain't protecting the future, so I don't know what's gonna happen. But as long as he don't say something violates my rights, if he does, and I'm gonna let that be known. I'm object to him, whatever.
Well, see now we're right back to. All right. So you know what? I'll just play it by ear. If I think that you're doing anything at all that's contemptuous or just trying to stall on this, then I'll make my rulings at that point.
I feel very comfortable with the understanding of the speaking objections, just so I'm on the same page. Everything else I will serve in a co-counsel role until directed otherwise.
Yep.
Very good, sir. Thank you.
Very good. All right. So now, as to the motion, doesn't take a motion. I just. So they can't hear. I don't know if they can't hear. I don't know. It's not my problem. It's for the public. I'm not sure what's going on. All right, so I see you filed a motion this morning. This motion is a motion and demand to dismiss or discharge this case based on equal protection clause violations. And I have read through your motion. And did you give your co-counsel the opportunity to read the motion? Just in case if he asks you any questions, or if you ask him any questions.
Your Honor, I have had an opportunity to review all of the pro se motions been filed in this matter. So yes, I
Including the one this morning.
we had a chance to review it. together.
Okay,
Yes, sir.
just want to make sure in case you need to assist in it.
Okay, so the original vintage says this trial is such a waste of taxpayer dollars. And I have to agree with you. I think it's because Judge Slavin just wanted to get this done and over with. I think this was the second or third attorney he tried to get and then tried to dismiss because they didn't want to go with the sovereign citizen bullshit. What really made this kind of drag out is this back and forth between him and his attorney, because one's an attorney and one's an uneducated loser. So it was kind of just that dragged out the entire time. In the second part, when they put Eric Martin on the stand and he starts getting questioned by his own attorney, Eric Martin just says and does the dumbest shit. So yeah, this could have been literally a trial that could have lasted 8 minutes. I'll give it 8 minutes for the jury to get up and down, and that's it. But Eric Martin wanted to drag it out for a year and some change.
I guess I'll just add, I have nothing to add.
Sure. All right, so this is your motion, Mr. Martin. And basically it states that you think that there's a conspiracy between the police department, Officer Borg, Mr. Greco, and myself to prosecute you and keep you from getting your moped back. Is that basically?
Not just, it's not totally current. So, okay, so the prosecutor called herself supposedly prosecuting me here on this case when I have sought to prosecute Anthony Borg for stealing my moped, which is larceny, without my consent, in violation of Declaration of Independence of 1776, along with my due process rights of the Michigan Federal Constitution. Okay, he had it towed immediately. And like I said, I filed actually state criminal charges myself with this court. They haven't been acted on. Greco here has not made no effort to prosecute it. And basically, like I said, so that violates my equal protection right. You know, if I'm being prosecuted, I have the right to prosecute when crimes being committed against me. But that has.
Colin, what's everyone got going on? I was up until about 5 o'clock this morning editing this. I woke up at 8:30. So I'm having a great day listening to Eric Martin. Just somebody was saying that it'll put you to sleep. Yes, it will put you to sleep.
That hasn't been respected in violation of my crime victims' right of the Michigan Constitution, you know, in addition to the due process. So yeah, like I said, so it violates equal protection clause violation, not allowing me to prosecute also for the crimes committed against me. Therefore, the case should be dismissed based on that.
And Mr. Greco?
Yes, very briefly, Your Honor. I just had an opportunity to look at it, and this motion has no basis in fact, law, or logic. Mr. Martin is being prosecuted validly because he was operating a moped on the road with a revoked license and or no valid license. The moped was taken by area towing at the time because it cannot be left on the side of the road and not left in his custody when he is refusing to acknowledge that he is supposed to have a license to operate a moped on the road. There is no basis to charge anyone else criminally or conspiratorially in this matter. And so it should be denied.
Also, since Colin's here, Colin just had a premiere right before the stream started. So if you still have any, I don't know, energy after this, go head over there and watch that premiere.
There's a respond to that?
I'm sure.
Okay, well, first of all, state statutes cannot violate the Constitution. As we know, the Constitution clearly says that property is not to be deprived before a due process of law, before a hearing. That was, as you just admitted, it was given by area towed immediately. You know, without before a hearing, without any due process of law. It did violate due process. And and besides that, based on my right to travel, my right to own my private property, I was supposed to take it anyways. So the state, even just a state statute that seems to allow it, it's an unconstitutional state statute, and that doesn't override the Constitution. Again, the Constitution says private property is not to be deprived.
All right. So based on all the testimony that I just heard and reasoning, plus after having read through the motion, I am going to deny your motion. There is no violation of equal protection under Michigan Law 257.2 252A, which is the abandoned vehicle statute. Anytime that there's a situation where a vehicle has to be abandoned, obviously the driver of the vehicle was arrested for not having a driver's license. That vehicle can't just sit along the side of the road, because why? Well, that's the city's job to protect that, and it also becomes evidence of of what was taking place. So that has to be impounded pursuant to the abandoned vehicle statute. Additionally, the due process that you say you are not going to seek, you actually will seek, because it's built into Michigan Compiled Law 257.904B, which states that when a person is convicted of an offense that's punishable by that section, the local ordinance, basically for operating a motor vehicle while their license is either suspended, revoked, or denied, the court shall order that the motor vehicle, if it is owned in whole or in part by that person, and the court shall order that the vehicle be impounded for not less than a period that the court orders, but not more than 120 days from the date of judgment. But what happens in the meantime and in between time is an actual trial that we're about to have right now. So that is the due process that the Constitution affords, because if it's found not guilty, then your moped gets put back with to you. There is no cost assessed to you. The city will pay any cost for impoundment and fees. Why? Because you're found not guilty. So the fact that you're stating that you're not getting due process, well, we're about to start the due process, which is the trial. So for those reasons, your motion is denied. Now, you can put that in the file. Put the hearings.
Erica, I appreciate that. KFAR is better than BSBT. To be fair, I think almost everyone is better than BSBT. No, I didn't attend. Someone else did, and I think you'll see it in part 2. I did a funny.
Denied for reasons stated on the record. Now, with regard to one other supplemental thing. So the civil infractions that are in here, the no proof of insurance and the defective tires, those both stem from the same incident occurrence?
That's correct, Your Honor.
And are we setting these for formal hearing? Are we having these as a formal hearing now with regard to these as well?
However the court wants to proceed. I mean, if we have a jury, we've got a jury. I mean, we can
Because the
do
jury
that.
doesn't do these.
Right. I mean,
So
if you want to do.
because what I'm saying is, I have no problem if you're going to put in evidence and it's going to be the same witness, and I got everybody here, I will make a ruling on these after and outside of the jury's decision-making and vision. So they're not going to see that, so they won't be influenced in any way by it as to, well, the judge said he's already responsible for those, he's probably guilty. They won't hear anything from that. I'm just saying I'll make that a separate ruling on this, but we're going to have the formal hearing with regard to these, because I think having a trial on this is about as formal as you can get. So, but all the decisions and everything about these will be outside of the jury's presence, because I don't want to taint the jury to think that, oh, well, the judge said he's guilty of the other things, so he's probably guilty of this. They're not going to hear any of that. Just put it in your evidence and I'll make sure of it afterwards.
Okay, fine. So we'll just address it during
Yeah,
the rest of the
that'll be part of
process.
And Mr. Martin, with regard to that, you'll be able to cross-examine about anything like, the tires. They won't understand what it has anything to do about anything, so I'm not going to instruct them that they're even thinking about that. I'm the one who will make the decision on that, because these aren't jury trial things. It's just civil infractions. So, and that way it's not going to, they're not going to get into it or about anything or hear anything about it really, other than they're going to hear the evidence for everything. I need to hear the evidence about this. So if you have any cross-examination with regard to defective tires, if you have any cross-examination with proof of insurance, I don't know whether maybe it was on your phone, maybe it was in your pocket. I don't know what, I don't want to put it. I'm just saying you can ask about all those things and make sure you're doing that, because we are having the formal hearing on these as well. So they won't understand that it has anything to do with their stuff. I'll make that determination after they're gone. So that way it doesn't change their viewpoint of you. Okay. So.
Okay, so I wanted to touch on this real quick before I grab that gifted memberships. So Pat, you think it would be strange to see Mr. Martin out in the wild. Here's the problem with where I currently live. I have the possibility to see these guys all the time. I just went to make the thumbnail for this video. And if you noticed, it was like Eric Martin standing there. I literally Googled Eric Martin Taylor and his entire Facebook page popped up with like places that I've been to. And I'm just like, that would be the oddest thing to be like, hey, I covered you. You're a sovereign citizen. I don't like you. Same thing, BSBT. He came to my house. He travels to areas that I have gone to. It's just crazy. And Erica, thank you for the 10 gifted memberships. Thank you.
We're clear, Your Honor.
Okay, very good. So let's go ahead and
Before we
any other supplemental matters?
I think there was one outstanding motion that at our last pre-trial hearing, Mr. Martin attempted to address with the court. I believe it was filed. I see a motion of an October 25th date. Is this the same argument?
September 25th.
Your Honor, it's a motion titled, motion for demand to dismiss, discharge these cases based on the attached legal arguments titled nobility. I don't know if the people were served a copy of this pro se motion. I did get a copy from your court staff.
Okay.
Let me converse real briefly with my client to make sure he wants to move forward with this argument. Okay, my apologies, Your Honor. He is ready to move forward with this argument.
All right, so the only other outstanding motion, and then the last time we were here, I said on the day of the trial that we'll throw up any outstanding motions that had not been heard. The only last motion, and obviously you filed a new one this morning that you brought with you, and we heard that, we discussed that. So you have this other motion for demand to dismiss and discharge these cases based on the attached legal arguments of title of nobility. So give me 1 second too, because I don't know if it's.
Okay, before he touches on this title of nobility bullshit, if you guys watched Old Squishy Gardner had about 13 or 15 minutes of this case. I have much more, and I think this is part that was in Old Squishy Gardner's video that he covered, but I wanted to cover this because it's BSBT and Taylor court related. BSBT is just making it harder on himself. If he had just went to court and said his BS, he would have gotten a fine to pay that he would not pay, but now he has to look over his shoulder all the time. So I think he wants to. I think he wants to be looking over his shoulder all the time because that's like his gimmick. His gimmick is, oh, they're looking for me. They're hunting for me. I'm the victim. I have a persecution complex. Even though it's like, dude, it's a fucking ticket for what is it? Oh, 3 counts of police interference. Like, you're not going to jail for that. You're going to get a fine. But because he wants to put out on, social media, YouTube, TikTok, Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, I think that's where he's at right now. He wants to put out that he's a victim. He wants to put out that, oh, the government's out to get me because of what I think. Same thing why he always says, oh, I'm being parentally alienated, but he never does anything to fix it because he wants that victim title of I'm being parentally alienated. It's his thing.
Did you have attachments to that? Because I see you got your handwritten. You got your what I was saying, I have your loose leaf handwritten motion like I see on your normal motions. But then I see like some pages that are, I don't know, it says page 49 of 88. So there's not 88 pages to your motion.
It was an administrative crossing page. I would have been a little more professional, I guess, but let's
I know,
I'll tell you how many pages there should be here.
I'm not speaking to your professionalism. I just want to make sure that I'm not missing the other 88 pages. That's all.
So, yeah, that's on the page now. 6, 7, 8. I'm counting 8 here. 8 in addition to the motion of the actual legal argument. I mean.
Okay, so I got 4 pages of. I got 4 photocopied pages and then 2 handwritten. So 6.
Six. You have 6 total pages.
6 total pages.
Hold on, I think you should have 8. Let me see.
One of the pages that's in our possession is a blank page that's looks to be a photocopy of a hand, just loosely notebook.
Let the record reflect. I'll just go through what the court has. Can you tell me if I'm missing something? Okay. So I have dated October 25th. It seems to be your title page where it says regarding City of Taylor versus Eric Martin, and it says sincerely Eric Martin in red. This is your opening first page, and then I have the motion heading page based on the attached law that is in demand. It is demanded that to take judicial notice of. Okay, and so that's the 2 front pages. Then I have
8 pages of a legal argument. I just can't 8 pages on
so there's 2 handwritten, and then there's 1, 2. So I have page 49 of 88, page 51 of 88.
That should cross out maybe
Page 53 of 88.
Number the pages.
Okay, so since they're just going back and forth on, it got sent double-sided, but it was printed single-sided, so it's missing half of the pages. 88 pages and never one that proves a point. If you noticed, let me pause it because I don't know what I'm missing so far. He tried this in Judge Washington's court, and the prosecutor there was like, you sent me all this paperwork, and when I went to go through it, none of the cases are about what you're claiming, and some of those cases don't exist at all. So more than likely, he just put in the same paperwork that he tried to use in Judge Washington's court.
Hold on, let me look at it. Let me see. So 49, 50, 51, 52.
I have a working theory on this, Your Honor. I have pages that have a court stamp every other page. My suspicion is this was double-sided. Did you write that? Were these printed double-sided?
No, I didn't send them double-sided. So
May I approach the judge?
Sure. If you could just take page 50 Because I don't have 50, I don't have 52.
Your Honor, let the record reflect I'm approaching with the entire motion, Mr. Greco.
Judge, just looking from here, it looks like yours are double-sided.
Oh, yeah, see mine are double, so I don't have any on a second now.
Okay, so that's what I'm trying to get us included.
Here's your motion. All right, so yeah, I got 50 on the back, so I guess you did print it double-sided or something, or?
Sorry for the interruption. That sort of looked
No,
like
that's
that's what
good,
happened.
good call, good pickup, but the record reflected that also violates the Michigan court rules with regard to pleadings, but in an improper state, I'll go ahead and take it in the light most favorable to the.
Judge Slavin
not
is such a
the,
nice guy.
improper defendant. So, all right, so Mr. Greco, do you have a copy of this motion?
I do.
Okay, you do. All right, so, Mr. Martin, go ahead with your motion.
Yeah, so with this motion, some of basically what it was already said in here is, the driver's license. Okay, the U.S. Constitution starts with Article 1, Section 10, the states prohibited from granting titles of nobility. Driver's license is a title of nobility, it's a special privileges for so-called drivers. It's prohibited.
Okay, so do drivers get the nomenclature of king, duke, duchess, governor, but what specific nobility titles are given to people who are drivers?
As it says in here, like I put in here, it's a privilege granted to a certain, right here, a title of nobility is defined as to nominate to an order of persons to whom privileges are granted. Objection to a title of nobility arises from the special privileges that attach to the title rather than to the title itself. Words and phrases, volume 8A, page 40, a driver's license is a privilege which is granted by the state.
Sir, I'm going to ask that you not mumble. You have to speak up because it's hard to hear. I can barely hear you, and I know that Ms. Hancock is going to have a hard time trying to make a record of this.
So it's not stopped. It's just he's reading off a piece of paper and not moving, and the prosecutor's just posted up chilling.
Yeah, just title of nobility is defined as to nominate to an order of persons to whom privileges are granted. Objection to a title of nobility rises from the special privileges that attach to the title rather than to the title itself. Words and phrases, volume 8A, page 40. A driver's license is a privilege which is granted by the state. Well, there's a lot of arguments stated, but basically some of, like I said, the driver's license title of nobility, it's special privileges granted to so-called drivers, so a select group of people, and U.S. Constitution, Article 1, Section 10 prohibits the state from granting titles of nobility.
Mr. Greco?
Yes, very briefly, Your Honor. The argument that he's asserting with regard to this applicability to driver's licenses has no applicability whatsoever. As the court is aware, being a constitutional historian and an American, that the titles of nobility was a big deal at the time of the founding of our country with respect to nobility titles such as that you described as king, duke, things that would be granted to somebody just by either right or granted certain rights by that title that have no application whatsoever to a state issuing a driver's license for those that are able to obtain one in the state. There's no applicability whatsoever.
So I will note that the Oxford Dictionary defines nobility as the quality of being noble in character. That's one. Two, the quality of belonging to the aristocracy. So, like Mr. Greco said, that's like you're a monarchy or whatever your setup is, like in England, that kind of thing, duke, duchess, all that good stuff. So, contrary to Roger Miller and the fact that is anybody who's the king of the road, that's not true. There is no nobility that comes along with it. Well, driver's license, when they use privilege to talk about privilege, that is in opposed to a right. You can either have something that's a right, or you can have something that's a privilege. And a privilege is something that can be regulated for the safety, health, safety, and welfare of all citizens. Like I said, you keep talking about a right to travel, you got a right to travel. You know what? You can walk anywhere you want to. But if you're going to use something that can hurt somebody else, that needs to be regulated, such as a plane. You can't just go and buy your own helicopter. Just, you know what? I'm tired of all the traffic jams. I'm just going to fly my helicopter from my house backyard, land it on top of the courthouse, and then I'm going to just, park here. You know what? You can't do that without a pilot's license. Why? Because you could literally kill people, like if you fall out of the sky. So there's a reason cars can kill people. It's no different than why you have to have a permit for certain weapons. We have a right to, and that's the clear right to keep and bear arms. But you still have to have certain weapons. You have to have a permit for those things. And so there's regulations that go along with that for the health, safety, and welfare. And getting a driver's license is because we want to make sure, the state wants to make sure that anybody who's driving has the basic knowledge and understanding of what it takes to drive safely, so that it's going to be for everybody, for everybody's benefit. So with regard to the violation, there's been no deprivation of your constitutional rights, and there's been no violation of the Constitution. And the fact that you need to have a driver's license is something that has been ruled upon by the Michigan Supreme Court, by the United States Supreme Court, and the right to travel does not supersede your ability to need a driver's license. You can travel all you want to, like I said once before. You can walk yourself all the way from good Forrest Gump from here to across the country and all the way back. But you gotta do it by walking, maybe even riding a bike or something that doesn't require a license. But for licenses, certain things need licenses. There's a reason for it. And all of those have been hundreds of cases that say, yeah. So for those reasons, your motion is denied. So now let's begin by bringing in the jury.
Can I object to that? I'd like to respond to something that you.
There's nothing to respond to. I've made my motion I've made my ruling on your motion, and your motion is denied. If you want to appeal it, you can appeal it to the circuit court, but that's between, all right, so.
That will be
right
appealing,
now,
actually.
we're getting to the-
All the verse, we're going to provide notice that the court will be appealing all the issues that's
Duly noted.
verse and
Duly
deny
noted.
my motions and demands based on my constitution.
Duly noted. All right, so I have, Defendant host is going to sign in real quick because he has 3 different felonies to swear in.
Just gonna step outside for a moment, Ron.
Sure. So I'm going to give, we're going to go on recess, probably 10 minutes.
Sounds great, Your Honor.
All right, so this is gonna again, it's gonna take forever. I see how he comes off as a constitutional scholar like chili to droolers. Yeah, so the funny thing is to my knowledge, Judge Slavin teaches constitutional law. So he's like an actual law scholar. So I don't know why sovereign citizens keep trying it with him. Anti-Dumbwaiter Appreciation Society, member for 10 months. Wow, 10 months, didn't realize it had been that long. Time flies on YouTube. I realized that when I started making videos that it literally flies by so quick. Yeah, lick the whole boot. If you're familiar with this, it's what did you call it? Scootergate. Colin called it Scootergate. He got pulled over on a scooter because he had a flat tire. Decided to, like, I guess, ditch his fucking thing for a second. Got pulled over. He had a revoked license. And now he's here acting like an idiot. But do you guys want to continue with this? Or do you guys want to jump to... Yes, Scootergate, yes. Do you guys want to finish the rest of this 30 minutes? Or do you guys want to jump to the second part that has the funny jury instructions and the actual trial? So I'm going to give it a hot second. If you guys want to skip this, I am totally cool with skipping this and jumping to part 2. News now and me. I'm changing the D on my dashboard to a T. Remember, for 3 months. That's solid. Oh, God. The actual trial. Okay, so we got 1 for the actual trial. And if that's all I get, then that's what I'm going to take. All right, 2, 3. All right, we're skipping it. Like, I'm cool with skipping it just because I know that. Now imagine watching all of this at like 3 o'clock in the morning, trying to just stay alive. All right, this part's an hour and 16 minutes. Because again, I believe I took the biggest portion of it and 1.25 speed or 1.3. Well, let me figure out how to work StreamYard again. Okay, here we go. Share screen. I hate StreamYard. Have I ever told anyone that? I genuinely dislike it. All right.
No?
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
A whole lot of them.
Okay, and what were those
What
questions?
can you do from here?
I'm just curious of what those questions are, because I want to make sure that they're relevant.
One is what their thoughts are about someone who identifies herself as one as a sovereign people. Do they have any? What's
Sure.
about that?
Do any of you have, like, and this kind of goes along with, or it's sort of a subcategory of what I just asked, like, does anybody have any general biases against stereotypes or people who identify as a sovereign individual? No? Anybody? Okay, so
Well,
the
I
answer.
ask them, well, what's on, do they understand what a sovereign people are by the law? Well, I just want to make it, well, do you think it's one of the You think it's just someone that thinks they can do anything outside the law and not be held accountable, even if that includes harming people or persons? Did you understand that? That a sovereign, one of the sovereign people means they're above any and all laws, and that means harming persons or property. You guys think it means that, or not sure?
All right.
You don't think it means that? Okay, right, because it doesn't.
Well, you're not testifying, you just said, we're just asking what they think, that's what we're looking for here. So none of them have it, none of you, so I guess, Mr. Martin, if you would like to give your definition of what you think a sovereign person is, and then I can ask if everyone agrees or disagrees with that. That way we can find out if there's any bias. So your opinion or your definition of a sovereign person.
As the U.S. Supreme Court case law defines it, I'm not looking at it right now, but if I'm remembering right, it's the right to be left alone, the right to
Well, I'm
pretty
asking,
much
I'm
not
asking
be
you,
held to a
I
lot
know,
of
but
laws, except unless you're harming
Sir.
persons or property.
I just want you to be, I want you to give the definition of what it means to be a sovereign citizen or sovereign person. And in that way I can ask you, do they agree or disagree with that? So.
That's not doing it. My understanding of the U.S. Supreme Court, not a sovereign citizen. First of all, the citizen is not supposed to be linked with the word sovereign, because the citizen means the slave to the corporation.
You're right, Eric Martin. It's not supposed to be put together, but your sovereign citizen grandpappy coined the term sovereign citizen. So if you want to, play this game, you should go back in time and make fun of the founders of the sovereign citizen movement for naming themselves sovereign citizens.
That call themselves the state or the United States. But again, it's one who basically has the right to be left alone. That means not charged or made to pay fines if you're not harming persons or property, because there's no injured party. So it's wrong to, hold a person accountable according to the so-called laws that just try to make the city just tries to get rich off.
Okay, so the definition that you're saying is that quote unquote, and I'm going to use air quote, laws that are just meant to generate funds and have nothing to do with protecting anybody, have nothing to do with keeping people, nothing to do with anybody attacking somebody else's rights. Basically, they're victimless crimes is what you're saying.
Right.
That sovereign citizens should just be left alone and shouldn't have to be bothered by those laws.
Well, there's no injured party, right?
Is that all right? So, do any of you, do all of you understand that definition of what he thinks a sovereign citizen is? You don't understand that. So basically, a sovereign citizen is what Mr. Martin is saying is that a sovereign citizen is an individual who thinks that some laws that are just there to generate money, like having to have a driver's license, is that one of them, Mr. Martin?
No, that's one of the,
Okay.
for example.
So if he gets pulled over and doesn't have if an individual gets pulled over and doesn't have a driver's license, well, you know what? Who cares? I'm not hurting anybody. What do you care? I didn't run on an. Now, if you run somebody over, well, then obviously that'd be a crime.
They can take responsibility.
Sure. Right. People should take responsibility for their actions, but if there really are no repercussions or there's no consequences to those actions, where then nobody's getting hurt, nobody's, I'm not stealing anything, I'm not infringing on anyone's rights, that I should just be able to drive anywhere I want to with or without a license. So does everybody understand like that definition of what he means by sovereign citizen? Does anybody have a bias? An automatic, well, you know what, if you're a sovereign citizen, then I'm just going to go for the not guilty. Or if you're a sovereign citizen, buddy, I'm just going to go right for the guilty. Or are you guys in the middle where it's like,
Colin, you are a saint. I could not sit through the whole thing. I just couldn't. Like, I love court stuff, but I like court stuff, I don't know, focused down to what I enjoy listening to. And some of the jury instructions were just mind-numbing, or when they decided to pick the jurors, some of it was like, oh yeah, I have this illness, I can't be here. And it's just like, I can't do this.
I'm going to listen to all the evidence, I'm going to listen to what the law is, and if the law says this and the facts state this, then I'll come to the conclusion that that's the reasonable conclusion. Or is there anybody here who's biased either way, for or against the sovereign citizen? No? Okay, I think that, and Mr. Martin, thank you for the good definition. That was able to really ascertain who is biased or not biased against it. Okay.
But I want to say, like, again, so you're using the word citizen, I want to say sovereign.
I'm
That's a
just, I
term
know,
that
but I'm
you
going to
use
make
in
sure that they understand what you were
Right, but
saying.
again, it's with citizen, like you said, I don't want to mix up that sovereign, you know, what you're mixing up there, but
Okay.
okay, I have more questions and, next question are all the jury members, well, let me ask one by one, and, well, just say,
You can,
is any jury member a US citizen?
is everybody here a US citizen?
Yes.
Okay, is there anybody not a US citizen here? Okay, yep.
Okay, now, because they don't acknowledge themselves as one as a sovereign people, they are not a jury of my peers. And therefore, I move to disqualify all of them based on that, because I have a right to a jury of my peers. Since I acknowledge myself as one of the sovereign people, it's not a jury of my peers.
Okay, so, Mr. Martin, you currently reside in the city of Taylor, correct?
But what do you mean by reside in the city?
You live in the city of Taylor.
I just want to back up for a second because he identifies as one of the sovereign people. He wants all other delusional people to only be on the jury. That's like if I decided to go to court and say, I'm a pterodactyl. Only pterodactyl people should be able to be on my jury because they're a jury of my peers. Like, that's not how it fucking works.
City of Taylor, you have your stuff, you go to bed, you go to sleep in the city of Taylor, right?
But does that
You have a house,
presume that
you live
I am-
inside, sir, I'm telling you what.
Yes, I'm asking a question to clarify something.
Right, I'm asking you to clarify. Do you have a house that you go to sleep at night and live there in the city of Taylor?
Does that mean subject to the jurisdiction of the city of Taylor? I say yes.
Sir, I already know that you live in the city of Taylor. Do you live at 9074 Clifford Street in Taylor?
Yes, as long as I don't
Okay,
presume
that's all. Okay,
that.
that's all. That's all. I just needed to know a yes or no question. Is there anybody here who's on the jury panel who does not live in the city of Taylor? No, everybody here lives in the city of Taylor? So everybody here is a citizen of the city of Taylor. Everybody here is here to enjoy the city of Taylor, enjoy the police protections that they give, the fire protections that they give, the services such as picking up the trash and that kind of stuff. When you put your trash out, you guys get mail here in the city of Taylor. And basically, you all are availing yourself of the city of Taylor and all of its services and benefits and protections. Is that correct?
Yes.
All right. So I find that they are a jury of your peers because they're all citizens of Taylor and you're a citizen of Taylor. So that's literally a jury of your peers. Doesn't say they all have to be, if I'm a man, they all have to be men. If I'm 45 years old, they all have to be 45 years old. Like there are no specifics of that. They just have to be impartial individuals who can reasonably listen to and discern the facts of a case, be instructed by the judge on the law, and come to an impartial decision, who all happen to live in the same jurisdiction that you do. That's what a jury of your peers means. There really is nothing more, because if someone was African American, they can't say, nope, that jury's gotta be all African American. If you're like my wife, who's an American Indian, I think you say, nope, they've all gotta be American Indians. You guys didn't originally grow up here. It's not that. It's about being people, just regular people who live here the same as you do. And there's a randomness to it, and there's supposed to be a randomness to it. Why? Because that's due process. That is the melting pot of America, and that's exactly how we set it up. So they don't have to be you. They don't have to all be named Eric or any other thing like that. So I do find that that question doesn't really count in your motion to dismiss the case based on the lack of not having a jury of your peers. I have individuals here who are all your peers here in Taylor. Do you have another question, sir?
Oh, yeah, I have actually like 8 more pages of questions. First one. Okay, so
You've written down all these questions?
yes.
So why don't you just tender the questions to me so I can go through it quickly and find out which ones are relevant and which ones are not, so that we're not wasting any of these people's time. And then what I'll do is I'll just ask the questions right from your page. If it's relevant, I'll just.
How was he found competent to stand trial? The world may never know. Could you imagine a jury of 12 soft sits in the same courtroom at the same time? In my head, sovereign citizens are like CrossFitters or vegans. They're going to tell you about it. And I think the room may actually explode with 12 soft sits telling the other 12 soft sits that they're a soft sit. Soft sitception, if you will.
I'll just ask the question, that way we can get moving along. All right, so.
You guys found out. You guys found out who I got this footage from. Steve was actually in court that day and got me this footage.
I want to make sure you can have the opportunity to make a record.
I'm thinking that now, they still, reserve my right if I remember another later one on.
No, sure.
That's all I can think of now.
We can, yep, we're not gonna go on any other recesses or anything like that, so, if you think about, another one, I will entertain your motions at any time.
Thank you, Your Honor.
So, now that, we have established, that I do again have jurisdiction, that the 13th Amendment does not apply, let's bring the jurors back in.
Ed, I sat through a ton of the jury instructions, and I quickly found out that I would never be able to be on a jury. They would kick me off first thing.
All right.
Yeah, it was 8 pages of the same question worded 30 different ways.
Back, if everyone is refreshed, rejuvenated, ready to try a case. And you all may be seated. Mr. Greco, your opening statements.
Yes, thank you, Your Honor. It is illegal to drive a motor vehicle on the road in the state of Michigan without a valid driver's license. It is illegal to drive a motor vehicle on the road in the city of Taylor in the state of Michigan without a valid driver's license or a revoked license. It is illegal to drive a moped on the road in traffic on a public street without a valid driver's license or with a revoked license. It is illegal to operate a moped on the road in the city of Taylor, in the state of Michigan, without a restricted moped license. If you are only between the ages of 15 and 19 years old. So if you're over the age of 19, you need a driver's license, a regular driver's license, requiring a road test regarding issued by the Secretary of State. But if you are 15 years old, you can apply for a moped license to only operate a moped, but the Secretary of State will not renew it past your 19th birthday. You would have to get a regular driver's license to operate a motor vehicle on the road.
So I didn't realize how intricate Michigan's moped scooter license was, because I didn't know about any of this extra shit where you could drive it underage until the age of 19. Then you have to get a big boy license. Did not know about that.
So it's July 11th, 2023 at approximately 4 p.m. at Rocco and North Line Road. Officer Borg is on patrol. He observes an individual on a moped stopped in the roadway with what appears to be a flat tire. Person gets off the bike, the moped, gets back on after inspecting the tire, turns into Heritage Park. Officer Borg, you're gonna hear her testify, sees this, comes in behind the person because of the flat tire. And then at that time, observes that he recognizes the person as somebody who he's dealt with before, who he believes is operating on a revoked or suspended license. We are here because the defendant, Mr. Eric Martin, was operating a motor vehicle, a moped, without a valid license in the city of Taylor on the roadway on July 11th, 2023. Now you might be saying to yourself, what could possibly be the defenses in this case? I'm not exactly sure. We got a little preview of them through some of the questions, but I believe one of them is going to be that my name is Eric Martin. I'm a living man. I'm not sure if I'm a person. I'm a living man, but I'm not subject to the laws of the state of Michigan or the city of Taylor. That is not true. I'd say I'm not required to have a driver's license to operate a motor vehicle, including a moped in the state of Michigan, in the city of Taylor, because it's unconstitutional that the state and or the city of Taylor require an operator's license, driver's license to drive on the road. Not true. He might suggest that he wasn't operating a motor vehicle that day or driving a motor vehicle that day, that he was traveling, and that under the Constitution protects against interstate travel. He was doing none of those things. He was operating a motor vehicle, which the state of Michigan regulates by driver's licenses, by having certain requirements, and then certain things that you could do to get your license revoked, which we're not into here. The fact of the matter is on July 11th, Officer Borg pulled over an individual operating a motor vehicle in the city of Taylor without a valid license and, in fact, a revoked license. I am confident after you hear the judge give you the jury instructions, and he already read to you what is going to be the jury instruction before, of what the requirements of this case, of what the prosecution has to prove, that is simply that the defendant operated a motor vehicle, that the defendant operated a motor vehicle on a highway or a place open to the general public and accessible to motor vehicles, and third, that the defendant's operator license was suspended or revoked. You are sitting on the jury. You are the fact finders. You are the fact finders that finds what you believe is true and then apply it to the law as the judge indicates what the law is to do, and then determine whether or not the defendant violated the law. I'm confident when you hear all of the proofs in this case, after you hear the testimony and any further argument that there may be, that you will find the defendant guilty. Thank you.
Mr. Martin, your opening statement.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury. Okay, so I'm a living man, one of the Sergeant people, fraudulently assumed defendant. Again, I know that might be above your guys' head because it's something more someone knows it's been studying law for 20 years, more advanced stage, but it's backed up by.
So just for shits and giggles, I'm like, man, this officer's last name sounds really familiar. Officer Borg. Officer Borg is actually the same officer that is in court with broken system, broken trust about those 3 interference with police charges. I just found that hilarious.
By laws called Roman System Gate Trust.
Such a small world.
Corporation, a defendant. But anyways, I got some proof to prove that, some laws going to prove that. The law applies that someone, actually the words used specifically in state law, a person must have a driver's license to drive a motor vehicle, okay? So that's the first fraudulent thing that's being done here. I'm a human being that's being fraudulently assumed to be the person. And I'm going to show you a Supreme Court's case law that says a person is not one of the sovereign people, as a person is defined in statutes. This is the U.S. Supreme Court talking here, not just me. Now, this whole case started from the harassment and retaliation of Anthony Borg, the police officer. He sees me riding down the street and calls me over, hey, come over here. And he had no probable cause. Just he recognized me as one of these, I'm a prolific complaint writer on the cops' misconduct, him and his friends. I don't have all the complaints with me now. I wanted to have them, but it was, the last stage. I thought about bringing all that. I tried to, I wanted to adjourn the trial, actually, so I can get that evidence to show all the complaints I filed. So if there's going to be any dispute whether I filed a whole bunch of complaints with the police, which supports my retaliation claim, which is the whole reason why this case was brought up by him in retaliation, because, like I said, I had a lot of complaints on his officers. Yeah, and now, besides that, as to a flat.
He admits to being a cop, Karen, but obviously Borg is at the bottom of your screen. He's right here. He's going to testify and say exactly why he pulled him over and basically debunks this whole, it's retaliation for my constant complaints. And you'll kind of find out why Borg knows him so well. And it's kind of the same reason we all know him so well.
Flat tire, you can kind of see it's kind of obvious that this is not just the case where he's enforcing law doing the right thing. You see someone with a flat tire, is that a reason to pull someone? He wrote that ticket actually on a flat tire, having a flat tire. Talk about nonsense. Talk about harassment, retaliation. Like having a flat tire is something wrong in this world. When someone gets a flat tire, what is wrong with it? Nothing. But he writes a defective ticket for that. That just shows, like I said, his retaliation, his animosity against me. But none of this will scare me and discourage me from forcing my rights. I've been doing this 28 years. I'm going to keep doing it. I'm one of God's righteous soldiers and warriors who stand for my rights and the people's rights. I truly represent the people. These guys on the other hand, they don't represent the people. Probably what do they represent? They represent the city, corporation that wants to make money out of people's rights, violate people's rights. Such as this. This is all about really the charges about me exercising my right to travel on my moped. Okay, and I don't dispute that I was traveling by right on my moped. Now I know the state law. Well, maybe it's more for I don't go into too much detail. It's supposed to be more briefer. But basically, it's about me traveling by right. You know, despite what he says, the U.S. Supreme Court says we have that right. He calls it not traveling by right. But as I'm going to show you word for word, the U.S. Supreme Court case law in the closing argument, that I was traveling by right. And I ask that you guys, like I said, do the right thing, and you guys should remember a not guilty verdict, because I'm going to show you by the law that's printed out of a law book. How I'm not liable under the state statute because I'm not a person, I'm a human being. It may sound, in case it be a certain thing, that may sound crazy. I'm a human being, though. It goes back to the Declaration of Independence, which I also have a copy right out of the law books. That government derives just power for the consent of the government. Meaning they must get our consent to hold us accountable. At least laws, there's no injured party, no.
Let's just debunk this now. We give consent. We vote in people who we want to pass legislation. They pass legislation, therefore we consent. Get fucked, Derek Martin. If there wasn't like, I don't know, let's go with maybe 500 sovereign citizens, maybe you guys could get your bullshit passed, but since you all live in Fantasyland, that's not going to happen. And then this whole, he just touched on it 2 seconds ago. I didn't hurt anyone. There was no injured party. Society is the injured party. We go over this all the time. Not in the new crib yet. Should be there hopefully by the end of the month.
For no human beings or property's been harmed, such as this case, they don't have my consent. Move forward anyways, violating that. Violating the 13th Amendment, right against slavery. So like I said, it wasn't a person, and it was exercising my right to travel and trying to convert this right to travel into a crime, which they're not allowed to do, by calling it driving. See, this is how most people don't know it's called legalese in the law. So this is how they're getting, they're putting a blanket over people that have people that don't study law. They call it, what they're calling traveling by right is you're calling it driving a motor vehicle. But there's a federal statute I have. Surprised I couldn't find on my paper, but it's 18 U.S.C. section 31, subsection 6 and 10. That defines a motor vehicle. Remember, the state statutes just say, remember, you need a license to drive a motor vehicle. Okay, now the state code just say a motor vehicle is anything mechanically drawn, excluding electric bikes and other electric things. But federal statute 18 U.S.C. section 31, subsection 6 and 10 defines a motor vehicle as one not just mechanically drawn, but also one being used to carry passenger property for profit. And again, the reason why they made the statute Congress is because of our right to travel, which is supported by U.S. Supreme Court case law, Packard versus Banton, which I'm going to show you right out of the law book. This ain't nothing, that I made up. This says the same thing, basically. The legislator cannot regulate the use of the roads unless the people are using the roads for profit, because that is the privilege. And that's where the license is needed. And I acknowledge that. That's what I was doing it at the time. As the evidence is going to show, also has no evidence that I was carrying passenger property for profit.
Okay, so I'm just going to throw this out there now. It can just sit and simmer. The Supreme Court ruled almost 100 years ago that the states can require you to have a driver's license to drive and use the roadways. They seem to skip over anything that has to do with requiring a driver's license, and they pick and choose sentences out of decisions that have nothing to do with driver's license to justify driving without a license. But cases specifically about driver's license, they breeze right over.
Meaning I wasn't driving a motor vehicle. Yes, the state codes might not support me on that. I agree with that. Not on that argument right there anyways, but the federal statute does, in Article 6 of the U.S. Constitution makes it clear that federal statutes are supreme law of the land. It overrides state statutes, meaning the federal definition must be applied here and listened to of a motor vehicle, which is pass or private property. They got no evidence of it. They can't prove a case, but I was driving without a license. Actually, I beat the case on the same thing in Southgate, which I meant to bring the order up, but I didn't. I forgot. It was one of the few things I forgot. Did you say,
Mr. Martin, you're not going to be able to talk about a case on Southgate.
Better know that.
It's not relevant to these proceedings.
Well,
It's not that it's not relevant even. It's that in reality, Eric Martin could say, oh yeah, this one time in this court far, far away, I got the judge and the prosecutor and the jury to say, yep, you don't need a license to drive. Therefore, you should say that I'm not guilty and don't need a license to drive today. And nobody could say anything because nobody knows. So it's kind of like you could just make something up on the spot.
well, can I respond to why I think it is relevant? Because I'd like to do that.
No, I'm just telling you it's not relevant, and I'm not going to have you convolute the case with something from a different case from a different city. Because I don't have any clue what they're talking about with that case over there. So it has nothing to do with the relevance here.
Okay, but that's also, well, yeah, basic, like I said, we're gonna go more in depth of closing argument, but we're gonna sum that up then, pretty much said everything I want to say, but based on that, because I wasn't driving a motor vehicle, exercising my right to travel, and because I was being harassed and retaliated against from the jump, he had no probable cause. No, case should be dismissed. Misconduct on his part. And also, one other thing, as a criminal enforcement officer, his duty and realm is to stay within enforcing criminal laws. Okay? And under the, and I know the statute may call it a criminal law, I realize that. But you understand, statutes violate people's constitutional rights in the common law all day long. I can point out 1,000 different things going to be found class actions and getting rid of these statutes that violate people's rights. But anyway, common law says crime is only when the human or property is harmed, and that's how it. Because what if they're holding people in jail, locking people up for not harming them? Why? You know why they're doing it? They're doing it because the city can make money. Everyone can make money off of violating people's rights. It's a damn shame. And then so. But yeah, so anyway, so he's acting outside of his criminal law enforcement realm and acting as a civil revenue officer because everyone's getting paid. And by the way, he's getting double time, and these cops get overtime pay for coming to court. So they're encouraged to write tickets.
Mr. Martin, you're bringing in things that are not even in evidence, that are not even relevant to these proceedings.
Yeah, I plan on making it like a question on it.
Yeah, turns out no officer, yes, you get more money. No officer enjoys going to court because Borg here had to show up for court. Basically, whether you're off duty, on vacation, court is court. You would have to go. But Borg has been showing up to these court things for a year and a half just to sit there and waste his day. Like no cop that I've ever met enjoys court.
I'm going to be questioning on that. Okay, well, so yeah, I guess that's about it. Like I said, as you guys do the right thing, do godly.
Just do the right thing.
Stand for people's right, find me innocent as I am. I'm not someone that thinks I can go around hurt people or property. This is a victimless so-called crime. I haven't harmed no one. I should be sitting in jail for it, but you see the statute, like he said, right? It's up to 93 days in jail. And a fine for doing what? Nothing wrong, haven't harmed no one. As far as a driver's license, slaving, I don't know if I'm allowed to comment on this, but so I am told unless it says otherwise. But a license ain't really necessary for the safety of it. I've been riding my motorcycle, actually got a separate case of that. And this moped for a long time, years. I've been crashing on. It's not necessary for a license. All you gotta do is pay attention, common sense. What's the speed limit? Stop at a stop sign and turn the left side on. It doesn't take a GED, it doesn't take a college degree, it doesn't take a license. I admit it's better. It might be better and it's supposed to just be recommended, but it's not. Where they're violating people's rights on this to travel by saying you must have one. But then they're not even calling what's really a license to drive a motor vehicle, truthfully. Again, just repeat myself again, man. When they're exercising right to travel, they're calling it driving a motor vehicle, and they're really not. And then that's a privilege. But like I said, as I'm going to show you, the U.S. Supreme Court defines driving a motor vehicle as when you're only using the roads for profit. The federal statute makes that clear. So, yes, you guys should find me not guilty and stand for the people's rights and don't allow this corporation, this is what this prosecutors represent. Slavery, he denied all my motions on it. So they're denying my constitution's left and right. It's necessary that people stand for the people's rights, or they're going to keep violating people's rights. We shouldn't stand for that. We should stand for the people's rights. So that's it. I ask you guys, like I said, find not guilty. Do the right thing. Thank you for your time.
I am going to, before we begin, I'm going to further instruct the jury that.
So somebody said, is the prosecutor going to debunk all that? Judge Slavin takes it upon himself.
Any law that you're going to hear and consider is going to come from me. I am the one who is going to tell you what the law is, because I am the one whose duty it is to tell you what the law is and what the instructions are. You'll hear facts from the parties, but any law that you hear from the parties, you can disregard, because that is absolutely going to come from instruction from me. So.
Objection, I object to that. You saying I can't make a legal argument?
I didn't say you couldn't make a legal argument, sir. I said that any instruction in the law, they're going to hear from me. I'm just making sure that they understand that where the law that they're going to apply and where that law comes from, and that's going to come from me, because that's the way it works. And with regard to Mr. Martin's statements that I have, or this court has in any way, shape, or form violated its constitutional rights, I'm going to just note for the fact that this court has been nothing but patient to make sure that Mr. Martin is able to make a record about everything he wants to make a record about. And there has been no violation of any of his constitutional rights. So I'm not going to mention any of the motions that were made, even though he mentioned them. You're going to disregard any of those because those are not evidence. It has nothing to do with the case itself. So we're going to proceed with the first witness, Mr. Greco.
Yes, thank you, Your Honor. The city of Taylor calls Officer Anthony Moore to the stand.
Officer Moore, do you solemnly swear affirm the testimony about to give us the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Please be seated, sir.
Okay, Officer Moore, please state your name for the record.
Officer Anthony Borg.
And are you currently employed?
I am.
And where are you currently employed?
The City of Taylor Police Department.
Okay. And what is your position of employment there?
I am a patrolman.
Okay. Does that include, do your job duties and responsibilities include traffic law enforcement?
Yes.
Okay. How long have you been a member of the City of Taylor Police Department?
Approximately 5 years.
Okay. Are you assigned to a specific detail or patrol?
I'm currently assigned to the traffic bureau.
Okay, so this is what your regular job is traffic enforcement?
Correct.
In addition to general police duties?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. All right, I want to take you back specifically to July 11th, 2023 at approximately 4:00 in the afternoon. Okay, were you working that day?
Yes.
Okay. Do you recall where you were in the city of Taylor at approximately 4:00 that day?
I was sitting in the entrance to Heritage Park off of North Line Road.
Okay. And what were you doing there generally?
At that time, I was monitoring the traffic at the intersection of North Line and Racco.
Okay. Do you recall encountering a person or a human by the name of Eric Martin that day?
Yes,
Okay. And is Eric Martin in the court today?
yes.
Okay, where is he?
Sitting at that table in the collared white shirt.
Okay, for the record, Your Honor, I'd like to point out that the witness has identified Mr. Martin at the defense counsel table. So noted.
So I think it just ends with a guilty or not guilty. And then they schedule sentencing for another day. Ugh. But dipshit already says he's going to appeal it. So there goes that.
Okay, what were the circumstances under which you encountered Mr. Martin at that day and time?
I was watching the traffic at the intersection of Northline and Racco when I observed a red moped traveling northbound on Racco Road approaching Northline. At that time, the light for the northbound traffic on Racco was red. As the moped approached the intersection, I observed what I believe to be a flat tire on the rear of the moped. While the light was still red, Mr. Martin exited off the moped in the middle of the roadway, walked to the back and was looking at the tire. While he was doing this, the light turned green. After approximately 2-3 seconds, he proceeded to get back onto his moped where he crossed over Northline Road into the entrance of Heritage Park.
And what did you do at that time?
At that time, I was waiting for, as I was parked stationary in the entrance to Heritage Park, he was traveling towards me. I was waiting for him to get to my location, and I was going to initiate a traffic stop for impeding the flow of traffic at the time.
Okay. And for the defective tire?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Is it? Okay, so at that point in time, he was coming toward you?
Yes.
Okay, so what's the next thing that happened?
I initiated a traffic stop.
Okay, did you pull out behind him or did you get out and wave or what did you do?
So as he approached me, I activated the lights on my patrol car. I exited out of the driver's seat and I advised him to come over to my location.
Okay, all right, because he's on a moped and he can go right toward you?
Yes.
Okay. Now, the moped is what we would consider a standard moped, like a two-wheeled vehicle, correct?
Yes.
Propelled by a motor.
Yes.
Correct? Okay. Or self-propelled by a motor. Okay. All right. So you call.
I can't hide the fish window because then it'll expose my source. So I'm blaming Steve as my source. There is an actual box up there.
Call Mr. Martin over. At that, let's say, prior to July 11, had you had any interaction with Mr. Martin?
I have had prior interaction with Mr. Martin.
Right. Did you recognize him that day?
As he started approaching closer to my patrol vehicle, I recognized him.
Okay.
And Borg absolutely throws him under the bus and makes him look like shit to the jury.
All right. So now you waved him over. He comes over to you. What's the next thing that happened?
He brings the moped over to my patrol vehicle as I exit. I told him to come on over. I asked him for his driver's license, at which point he told me that he did not need to provide one. I reiterated to him that he did need to provide a driver's license as he was driving a motor vehicle on the roadway. At that time, he produced me with a Michigan identification card.
Okay. So is a Michigan identification card something that's distinguishable from a driver's license?
Yes.
It's not a driver's license, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Did he indicate to you that he did not have a driver's license?
He made a comment stating that he did not have a driver's license.
Okay. So he hands you a Michigan ID card, correct?
Yes.
Okay. What is it that you do next at that time when he hands you that?
At that point, another coworker, Officer Anthony, arrived on scene. While he stood by with Mr. Martin, I went to my patrol vehicle. Using the in-car computer, I queried Mr. Martin's name information, which indicated that his driver's license was in fact revoked.
Officer Varg, I'm going to approach you with what's been marked as People's Exhibit Number 1. Just take a moment to look at that. Now, before I ask you about this, your testimony is that when you had looked up on your in-car computer, which is it linked to Secretary of State?
Yes,
Okay. And it come up Eric Martin revoked, correct?
yes, sir.
Now, I've handed you what's been marked as plaintiffs or people's exhibit number 1. Can you take a look at that and tell me what this is?
It is Mr. Eric Martin's driving record.
Okay. Does it indicate anything with regard to the status of his driving record?
His status is currently revoked.
Okay. Now, it looks like that this is a certified driving record, electronically certified in compliance with 257.204A as of October 23rd, 2024. So this looks like it's his current driving record, correct?
Yes,
And in looking at the driving record, does it provide prior violations or sanctions?
yes, it does.
Okay. And up at the top, it says revoked, correct, on the upper right?
Yes,
And then with regard to the violations, I see some regarding 2020 years, 2021 and 2022. Can you see where the sanctions are for the Secretary of State and what it indicates?
yes, it indicates revoked.
Okay. So those would be years prior to your stop on July 11th, 2023, correct?
Yes,
So it indicates that his license was revoked before that time, and it was in fact revoked as of the day that you stopped him?
yes,
And it appears that it's still revoked today, correct?
correct.
Your Honor, the people would move for admission of exhibit number 1.
Your Honor, after speaking with Mr. Martin, as his co-counsel as to rules of evidence, I would state that this is an exception to the hearsay rule under 803.6 and MCL 257.204A, so we have no objection to that.
I would concur, admitted as People's Exhibit 1 or A?
1, I think we marked it as 1.
People's Exhibit 1.
Thank you. Just put it up here. Okay, after your encounter with Mr. Martin, or at least during, and after you ran his name in your computer and saw that he had a revoked license or didn't have a valid one at that time, what is the next thing that you did with respect to Mr. Martin? What did you do?
The next thing that I did was I placed Mr. Martin under arrest for driving on a revoked license. I placed him in handcuffs, placed him in the back of my patrol vehicle. At that time, I queried the registration on the moped in our in-car computer, which was registered to Mr. Eric Martin. While querying that, it also indicated that there was no insurance on the moped. It would say EIVN, which is electronic insurance verification, and the N stands for no. At that time, I issued Mr. Martin a citation for driving on a revoked license, no proof of insurance, and a defective tire for the rear flat tire. I advised Mr. Martin that he could exit my patrol vehicle. I unhandcuffed him, issued him a citation, explained him how to take care of it, and advised him that his moped was to be towed by area towing.
And why did the moped need to be towed by area towing?
Well, I couldn't just leave it in the park. Mr. Martin did not have a valid driver's license to drive it away from the scene. It had a rear flat tire and no insurance on the moped, which you're required to have insurance on a motor vehicle.
Again, where's Ed? Back in my day, where I used to work, we had I thought it was a good system. If you got pulled over and we had I don't know, it was during the beginnings of the old COVID. If you had a driving without a license coming at you because you were driving with no license, they would tow your car unless someone in your vehicle had a valid driver's license. They wouldn't wait for someone else from a different location to come to scene. I don't believe, Eric Martin had anybody sitting on the back of his moped. So they said, okay, bud, you can't go anywhere with it. So we're just going to tow it.
And through the department, do we have an official policy on how to inventory property and things?
Yes,
So you're not authorized to throw it in your trunk and drive away?
correct.
No, it needs to be properly accounted for, both for the evidence for the issue or even just the property, and also for the safety and or convenience of the parties that you may be inventorying something, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Based upon your observation and you running Mr. Martin's record, it did appear to be over the age of 19, correct?
Yes.
Born in 1973.
Yes.
And this brief investigation by you and the issuance of the citation all occurred within the city of Taylor, correct?
Yes, it did.
And you observed him operating the moped on the roadway, correct?
I did, yes.
I have no further questions, Your Honor. Thank you.
Cross-examination. Mr. Martin.
Now, if this was a video, I would use "This is where the fun begins" from Star Wars. So this is where the fun begins.
Martin, will you be doing cross-examination or Mr.
Yes, and in addition, Tim, anything additional he wants to add, of course.
Okay, so you're going to, and then anything he wants to, sure.
Yeah. Hey, Anthony Bower, we have evidence that the so-called moped goes over 30 miles an hour. Are you aware of it?
I don't have evidence of that, no.
Okay, question number 2. We have evidence that the motor, the so-called motor, as you said, is in excess exceeding a 100 cc.
No.
Okay. Now you said you recognize me. Where do you recognize me from?
This is the good
Your
part.
address on Clifford Street?
Right. More specific. So to be more specific.
Your address, the 9000 block of Clifford?
All right. But I mean, do you recognize me from filing a lot of complaints on you and your officers? And or your other officers? That's not.
I don't. I recognize you from the domestic violence disputes that we called to at your residence.
Are you aware that I filed?
So that basically debunks his entire narrative of, oh, you only did this in retaliation for me being a Karen and filing knowingly false complaints. The officer's like, no, it's actually because of all the domestic violence calls we have to go to your house for.
I filed many complaints on Taylor police officers, the Taylor Police Department.
I am not. That's not a part of my job description or duties to deal with complaints or to know about people who file complaints.
So you haven't heard it from fellow police officer, he wrote complaints on us.
No, I have not.
Next question. Can't set things right now, but so you say when I was crossing North Line, my tire went flat and I stopped. And that's, wait, hold on, before we go there. You said I was impeding traffic, you made that statement. You elaborate more on it, how was I impeding traffic? Was that on, where was that at?
You're on Racco Road, sitting at the red light at North Line.
Right.
When the light had turned green, you were off of your moped, standing at the rear of your bike, looking at your tire while there's traffic behind you, impeding their flow of traveling when the light turned green.
And how long do you allege that this happened that I've impeded traffic?
Approximately 3 to 5 seconds. I'm not exactly sure. It was a short period of time.
You said the light was green then? During this 3 to 5 seconds, or was it red or what?
When you first exited the moped, the light was red, but as you exited the moped, the light had turned green.
When the light turned green, did I hurry to take off, or was I still there, or what?
When the light turned green, you were standing in the middle of the roadway at the rear of your moped.
For how long?
Like I said, approximately 3 to 5 seconds.
Do you have any video evidence to support that?
I'm not 100% sure what my dash camera picked up at the time.
Okay. So now, you're the ticket for defective type. Could you elaborate more on that? What's the problem with the, well, you said it's defective. What do you mean by a defective tire?
The tire on the moped was flat, and you were operating it on the roadway.
How long was that around the road? Was it short term?
Prior,
I'm muted. Yeah, so it's not necessarily that he's asking terrible questions. It's the fact that the questions he's answering are so, I don't know, vague that the officer's responding however he wants because they are so vague. They're not directed in any way. Like if the other guy was, if his actual attorney was doing this, he would say, oh, blah, 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 asking the question, already knowing the answer. Where Eric Martin is going in with what he thinks is the answer, and that's not the case. I am with no one. It has been said in a few circles that if I can nail down a date for Chris, I may go to Kentucky to record it, but I will not be going with anyone or anything like that. I am moving further in that direction, so I may be able to go and record it. Where is it? I just saw it. Gave Homer a milk bone for that mute. Yeah, I'm trying not to let any of the sound from my office get through the live stream, and I keep forgetting it because normally I just stopped muting myself for that reason.
prior to my contact with you, I'm unsure how long you were operating it on the roadway. But when I observed you, you were operating the moped with a flat tire on the roadway.
So the truth say it was short term then, you observed me, it was a flat tire, then I stopped, got off it, right?
Like I said, I observed you traveling northbound on Racco, approaching North Line, stop at the intersection, and then proceed through it, the Heritage Park entrance up.
Which was, how much longer after that? How many feet after the light or?
I'm not sure, I didn't measure it.
Well, let's say in general, looking, going off, I know Zach, you didn't have a tape ruler, but by your visual observation, how long was I traveling with this flat tire, what seemed to be, or, it seemed to be a flat tire, how long did you see me traveling from North Line? Is it true to say it was a short distance?
I'm unsure of the distance, I just observed you traveling on the road of Racco.
Well, let's take a guess. Would you say it's
I don't feel
50 feet,
comfortable
100 feet? 50 feet, 100 feet?
Like I said before, I don't feel comfortable guessing on how far I watched you travel on the roadway.
Well, then in that case, do you have any diagrams to show? Do you have any evidence to show from point A to point B where I suppose you traveled on this flat tire?
I do not have any diagrams, I just recall you traveling on Racco Road on the roadway operating a moped.
You can't say whether it's short term or long term, so you want to say that, right? Generally. All right. Not forgetting anything else here? Are you guys schooled on the right to travel law?
Why would the officers be trained or schooled in things that aren't real? I go over it all the time. Sinise versus Roe, which breaks down the three parts to the right to travel, and it has nothing to do with what sovereign citizens are claiming.
Right. Could you repeat the question?
Are you guys schooled as a Taylor case officer, you specifically? Have you been schooled on the right to travel by the U.S. Supreme Court? Like what the U.S. Supreme Court says on that law, have you guys been schooled on that at all?
Schooled?
Taught, yeah, what it teaches about people's right to travel. Instead of just these statutes that you guys are always going off of. You've been trained,
Actually asking a fact witness about something law with regard to the Supreme Court.
It's the same.
Okay, well, trained, I only use the word trained. That's okay, I'm using trained. Have you been trained on the law of right to travel? Okay, that's not. I'm aware.
It's not about that. You're asking somebody who is not a law professor or
No.
an attorney, whether or not, he's already answered your question. Have you been schooled or trained? And he's saying, no. they didn't
Factual
have
wise.
Special training.
Right, okay, no, that's the only change. What does your training consist of as to what the laws are?
There's a legal portion of the police academy and there's regular in-house police training provided by the police department.
As to one supposedly driving. Do they touch anything about the travel?
I know you need a driver's license to operate a motor vehicle on the roadway.
Right. What about? They even mentioned then too about right to travel.
As I stated, I've been trained and taught in my academy and police training that you need a driver's license to operate a motor vehicle on the roadway.
All right, because I'm a good guy, I'm going to go over the three components of the right to travel. One is the right to enter one state and leave another, which has nothing to do with what he's talking about. The right to be treated as a welcomed visitor rather than a hostile stranger. Again, nothing to do with what he's referring to. And for those who want to become permanent residents, the right to be treated equally to native-born citizens. None of these things say, oh yeah, Eric Martin doesn't need a license to drive his beat-up moped all around the streets of Taylor, Michigan. There's a right to travel. However, Hendrick v. Maryland states gave the states the right to regulate operating / driving motor vehicles. Yeah, it says the states can require you to have a driver's license to drive, but for some reason, sovereign citizens forget that that's a thing.
That's all the questions right now. I reserve my right if I think of any more. That's it for now.
Mr. Hadley, anything?
Good afternoon, Officer.
Good afternoon, sir.
Yeah, sir. I just have a couple quick questions. There's no trick questions today. You know the answers to everything I'm going to ask you, okay? You did create a police report after the stop of Mr. Martin, correct?
Yes, it is.
It's factually accurate. Your police report didn't have any photographs of the rear tire attached to it, correct?
Correct, it did not.
Okay. The day that you were out patrolling, did you have the body worn camera?
I did.
And was it active and working that day?
Yes, it was.
Okay. And as part of the preparation for this case, did you have an opportunity to go back over your body worn cam? I mean, I kind of remind yourself of what had happened that day.
I believe at some point during one of the court proceedings, I
Got a chance to go back and just kind of see what had happened that day.
yes.
Okay. Your prior testimony was you were stationary, correct? And Mr. Martin was driving towards you?
Yes.
Okay. So you could, it sounds kind of obvious, but you couldn't see the back tire as he was driving towards you, correct?
The back tire was.
Yes, of the moped as he was driving towards you, because it was in the back.
Initially, no.
Okay. Mr. Martin didn't resist or physically prevent you from fulfilling your duties that day, did he?
He did not. At first, he did not want to provide me with his driver's license, but as I told him that he was required to by the state law, he then provided his identification card.
So No, I am gonna put words in your mouth a little bit. So it'd be true to say the only evidence we have of the condition of Mr. Martin's tire that day. Let me back up, strike that. Can we agree that the video of your body worn cam doesn't depict maybe a very crystal clear image of that rear tire?
I'm not sure. I didn't watch the body camera today before today's court hearing.
More than happy to. The stop.
Remember how this interaction goes between an actual attorney and the police officer. This is creating reasonable doubt. Was the tire flat? Who knows? Eric Martin wouldn't have done that and didn't do that. And then Eric Martin blows it when he gets on the stand.
Itself is about 4 or 5 minutes. I don't really want to belabor the process, but if it'd be helpful, would you like to, again? Or how about we do this instead? Can you tell me where your body worn cam's positioned on your uniform as to like what it would typically record as your, tell me when to stop as far as like, so if you and I are here.
My body camera's right here. My
But let the record reflect that the witness took a standing position at the witness chair, and he's touching the middle right side of his chest.
Would it be fair if we're staying close together that you would only see the upper half of my body? You might not see everything that's below.
I guess it just depends on how close we are while interacting with each other.
Mr. Hadley, I don't mean to interrupt, but when you step in between the podium and there, you go into a dead zone.
Can't hear me.
Yeah, it's true.
My apologies. Should have addressed that before I moved around the world.
I should have let everybody know about that, but.
Wait, you mean YouTube U isn't an accredited law school? Shit.
Please proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. The officer really don't have any further questions to go down this line. Just so we're in clarification, there was no picture of the rear tire, correct?
Taken from me, no. I know when area towing takes possession of a vehicle, they do photograph the vehicle on the bed of their tow truck prior to leaving the scene.
So for today's purposes, the only evidence that's being admitted would be your testimony as to what the condition of the tire was, correct?
Correct.
Okay. I have no further questions for this witness, Your Honor.
That's one questions. I forget. Why did you, what was the reason you pulled me over? Or making me come to you?
My initial reason was because you were impeding the flow of traffic at the intersection of North Line and Racco.
It wasn't for a flat tire. Next question. Now, did I provide you my ID by consent, or was it due to your threat of saying I must provide it?
I'm going to say it's objection. It calls for speculation. He doesn't know what you're thinking.
No, I'm asking him why. Okay, I'm asking him why did you make me give you my ID? Did you make me give you my ID?
Objection, Your Honor. Asked and answered. He's already testified about the interaction and how he ended up with Mr. Martin's ID.
Sustained.
More questions, all right?
Mr. Hadley, anything further from the side?
Absolutely not. We'd ask the court to excuse this witness if there's nothing for redirect.
Yeah. I have no further questions for this witness, Your Honor.
Officer Morgan, you may step down. Thank you for your testimony, sir. Thank you. Mr. Greco, you can call your next witness.
Your Honor, the prosecution has no further witnesses. The prosecution rests with your testimony of Officer Borg and what is established with respect.
Yeah, that's it. That's all the prosecution has. Somebody just brought up Black's Law Dictionary Edition 4 was released way back in 1969, so well out of date. If you guys know, Black's Law Dictionary used to be on 11, and I believe as of January of 2024, we are now on Black's Law Dictionary Edition 12. Enjoy.
Mr. Martin, any witnesses?
Well, I did want to bring the witness, and then you Yeah, besides the hearing officer issue, no, you're ruling on that,
Sir, the hearing officer from the city of Livonia who denied your license one time ago has no relevance to this case.
I want to explain why, but
But it doesn't have any relevance to this case, and I can't bring in anything that's not relevant. Any further discussion is going to try to make possibly make a mistrial, or hopefully be tempted for it. So say another word about
Your Honor, after advising Mr. Martin of his Sixth Amendment rights, which I think he's now fully aware of, his knowing and voluntary decision that he would like to take the stand on his own behalf. At this time, Mr. Martin will be calling Mr. Martin to the stand, and I will be asking a couple questions.
Okay, so just for the record, I'm not going to allow Mr. Martin to just testify in some sort of narrative form. He's going to be asked questions by you. Is that how it is?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And Mr. Martin, you understand that you are subject to any cross-examination by the prosecution if you take the stand. You understand that?
no, comprehend that.
All righty. And sir, you understand knowingly and voluntarily that you are choosing to take the stand, knowing that you have the right to remain silent, not have that silence used against you. You understand that?
Yes.
Okay. And counsel, as a co-counsel here, has explained all of that to you. Is that correct?
We have 20 minutes left, 21 minutes left. And I have just found Black's Law Dictionary 12th edition for $89.95 on the old interweb. Has a Siberian. I don't know. I was going to cover his one long trial he had, but then I realized that I hate that guy and couldn't do this.
All right. And Mr. Martin, you may take the stand, sir. I find that you're knowingly and voluntarily doing so. Thanks, sir. Would it be easier if they just stay with the table?
Madam Recorder, I'll stay put at the podium this time for us.
Yes, hardcover and signed by BSBT and Eric Martin, the greatest law scholars of our generation, said no one ever.
Mr. Martin, do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
You may be seated, sir. Please use a nice outside voice close to the microphone so that we can make sure to make a good record that everybody can hear. All right?
All right. Please state your full name for the record.
Capital E, lowercase r-I-C, of the capital M, lowercase a-r-t-I-n family. Living private man, on sovereignty, as the U.S. Supreme Court recognizes, not a corporation or fiction entity. It's being fraudulently acted on as if I am.
Where were you on July 11th of 2023 at approximately 4 p.m.?
Riding my traveling by right on my moped. About to cross the street of North Line. And I do not remember, well, give my title, I might just stick strictly with your question. Elaborate more, just.
Let me prompt you to say, can you tell me a little further about what happened that day?
I was traveling by right on my moped. I wasn't carrying passengers of property for hire at the time. So therefore it meets the definition of travel by right. I do not remember stopping at getting off and impeding traffic. I do not remember myself doing that.
What do you, Mr. Martin, what do you recall the condition of your rear tire being that day?
My tire did go flat on me when I remember it when I crossed North Line Street. A short distance, the tire had just went flat, and I stopped the moped. It went flat. That's it. And this one, and it was a short distance. I'm thinking roughly 50 feet, maybe 100 feet. It wasn't long, but it's like any flat tire. I stopped so don't damage my rim. But so I stopped, and but also during this is when Anthony Borg, please.
I'm gonna ask you another follow-up question. So why don't you tell us, when you first recall seeing the officer?
Once I crossed the north line, it was just a little bit past that. Anthony Borg was there, was another one of his partners, and he called me over. He said, "Hey, come here." So when he said that, I figured I'm going to threaten to arrest to stop, because if I don't, he may try to arrest me or write some ticket like obstruction of justice or something. So under threat and arrest, not willingly, contractually, I stopped against my consent. And this is when the rest followed. As he said, he arrested me and he forced my identification from me, which again, I did not willingly do. I figured if I didn't give him my ID, it's going to be, a charge of obstructions. I've been seeing YouTube videos, people get charged by cops sometimes is they don't give their ID. They don't self-incriminate yourself, basically. They get charged with obstruction of justice. So under that threat and arrest, I gave my ID home.
Mr. Martin, or let me ask a better question. Would you like to describe any of the characteristics of the device that you were on that day? You asked some questions previously about the vehicle. Is there anything that you think is relevant for us to know about this vehicle?
Well, the burden of proof is on the prosecutor. So I'm silent on that. Burden's on them.
Understood, Mr. Martin. Factually, is there anything that you would like the jury to know about the vehicle or the moped? It's your opportunity to sort of explain any of the facts that you...
No, except for I was traveling by right, regardless of what it is. It's not important, as I was shown by the law, whether it had an electric motor or a gasoline motor, whether it was called, it's. I don't think I'm going to prove in my argument how it was irrelevant anyways. Like I said, the burden of proof is on the prosecutor, not me, so I remain silent on that issue.
Your Honor, this is a little bit unusual way to have a direct examination. I would like to ask an open-ended question. I understand that we can't just go for a full narrative, but Mr. Martin.
And I object to that extra question too, because it would be self-incriminating, even if, hypothetically, if it wasn't.
Understood.
Right.
Okay, then that's why we're giving you an opportunity to clear that up right now. This is your chance, Mr. Martin. I don't have any more direct questions for you right now. Was there anything else that you would like to tell the jury at this time, factually?
This is his attorney saying, I'm asking you a very broad question. You can fill in the blank with whatever you feel is relevant to your situation. And Eric Martin's an idiot and doesn't know. He hasn't taken the hint. His attorney's basically winking at him, and he's just not getting it.
About what happened on July 11th of 2023 at approximately 4 p.m. thereafter, immediately after.
Well, yeah, also Anthony Borg had no legit reason for pulling me over. He seen me, he pulled me over. He was going, as his testimony said himself, he just noticed me from prior experience. Now, that is not a justified reason to pull me over. To just go by, let's say, okay, in fact, let's say a year or two ago, I didn't have a driver's license. That doesn't mean I don't have one now. So you can't just go pulling people over because you think, because a year or two ago, the guy didn't have a license. So let's just pull him over again. Let's just see. So this is why it's harassment to me, factual wise. It supports that. And in my mind, that's what it is. And it's retaliation for my complaints.
Mr. Martin, before I ask opposing counsel if he has any questions for you, is there anything else you would like to tell us?
I do not know this right now.
Understood. I will have a chance when Mr. Greco's done to stand back up and do what's called redirect. So I will pass the witness at this time.
And that redirect will be only under the scope of cross-examination.
I'm sorry. Thank you for clarifying that.
Mr. Greco, cross-examination.
Mr. Martin, on the afternoon of July 11, 2023, as you've testified, you were driving your moped on North Line Road near Heritage Park, correct?
No, not
You didn't just testify about that?
I didn't say I was driving. Did I use those words? No.
Were you traveling on your moped?
Traveling by road.
No, hang on a second. Were you traveling on your moped on July 11th around 4 o'clock on North Line Road?
Don't speak that. Traveling by road.
Okay, thank you.
Same as driving.
Okay. When you were on the moped, right? This is not a Flintstones thing. You were like, over your feet. No, you just said it was a moped during your direct exam.
No.
It has a motor,
I
correct?
did not say that. No, I did not say that. I
You
said
keep
if
referring.
it, I'm gonna clarify, in case you misheard me, I says regardless whether it is or not, I remain silent on that issue because it's for the prosecutor's burden to prove. I don't, sit there and
After you
tell whether it's
indicated it was a
motorcycle, moped,
It's
or
okay.
bike.
And you were in the city of Taylor, correct?
Well, what's your definition of in the city of Taylor? Does that mean?
Okay, let's ask, you can answer my question. Do you know if you were in the city of Taylor that day?
Yes, I was.
Okay, thank you.
All right, I just want to understand, that does not.
No, it's okay. I just answered so you would understand it, okay?
So, yes, pleading the fifth. Oh, him not answering it and pleading the fifth shouldn't be taking as an admission of guilt. But he made some claims. But now, because he knows his claims are kind of bullshit, he's like, well, I'm not going to answer because you have to prove it. And it's like, no, you're not answering because the answer wouldn't be in your favor. Oh, were you driving or traveling? Oh, I don't know. Did it have a motor or not? Oh, I don't know. Like, did your moped run on hopes and dreams? Like, how did it go forward? How did it propel itself?
Okay, so that's clear. We're good. Okay. And you just testified that you admit that at or around the time that Officer Borg pulled you over, that your tire was in fact flat, right?
Just went flat, yes.
Okay, regardless of whether it's on his body cam, it was in fact flat, right? So we can establish that?
Yes.
Okay. And you admit that you didn't have a valid driver's license that day, correct?
Yeah, I admit that, I didn't have a driver's license.
Okay, that's fine. You acknowledge that state law requires you to have a driver's license. You just disagree that it should be applicable to you, correct?
No, it's not correct. As my opening statement says, I do not, no, the state law does not mandate me as a human, as I will show with my legal arguments.
I
to have a
understand.
driver's license.
No.
So you're traveling by right, which is a difference by the law.
I understand. Listen to my question again. You acknowledge that the state law says that it requires to operate a motor vehicle on the road, you need a driver's license,
It's a
right?
fraud. No, it requires, it says the specific statute uses the word person, and as I will demonstrate, the US Supreme Court said persons are defined as, it's distinguished from a sovereign, one of the sovereign people. There's a difference. So it's really a corporation, it's all fraud. What's really being charged is a corporation, all capital letters, names, which is not me as a human.
Your testimony that you're not a person
Is that I am a sovereign, one of the sovereign people, as the US Supreme Court said.
and
People are sovereign.
right, and your testimony is that because you're not a person, that you are not required under the laws of the state of Michigan to have a driver's license to operate a motor vehicle, correct?
That's right.
Okay, thank you. I have no further questions.
Any redirect
Questions?
under the small scope of the direct, cross-examination?
Yes, Mr. Martin, please.
After pulling over to inspect whatever condition your rear tire was in, you were able to still drive it off? Or were you able to still drive it off?
It went down flat, but, it went flat. And I can't remember if it was, went all the way flat. Actually, I think it had a little bit more on there, but I won't feel safe sitting on it, but I could have walked away with it. And in contrast to the testimony that, the police officer said, for example, it was abandoned, that was a lie. So that's something else I want to mention too. I did.
So this is where I said his defense attorney, when he was, cross-examining the officer, he got him to admit, like, oh, there's no pictures of the flat tire. You couldn't remember how flat it was. And then Eric Martin comes on the stand like a bull in a china shop and says, yeah, of course my tire was flat. And the defense attorney is just like, what?
I did not abandon my vehicle. No time. It was private property. I did not abandon. I could have walked away with it from the scene without traveling by right on, or we want to call it driving. I didn't have to do none of that. So that's another reason why they didn't have to tow it. And regardless of the flat tire issue, I could have walked away with it anyways.
Mr. Martin, based on the questions that the prosecutor just asked you, I'm going to ask you an open-ended question because you're representing yourself today and I'm assisting you with the representation. Is there anything that you would like to state to the jury in response to the questions that Mr. Greco just asked, limited to that, nothing new, but limited to that area as the judge is instructed?
Yeah, I want to say to the jury as to what the prosecutor said.
Correct. It's an open-ended question to you to, again, as you're representing yourself in this, anything else that you'd like to state on this matter? Done.
Besides what I get to say in the argument, I can't. Well, actually, I do have some questions for the prosecutor. I need to get, I have them written down. No, I don't know if these would be considered within the realm of direct examination. Do I have questions for the prosecutor? This has to do with a legal argument. Another one to dismiss this case, which has to do with your standing, Greco. Now, for example, one of them is.
Mr. Martin, I've already made a ruling on your motion to dismiss based on lack of standing, and I explained to you
This is totally
that I
different.
have jurisdiction and that prosecution and the city of Taylor have standing.
This is a different argument based on standing. It's different.
Different argument based on standing.
No, but
Well,
it's different.
first off,
Whoever said that all of his motions that got denied, he's just going to try him again. You were correct. He already got shot down on the standing. So now, I'm trying standing a different way. Well, it's either they have standing or they don't. And it was already ruled that they do. So like drop it and stop wasting everyone's time. At this point, I'm pretty sure the jury's like, is there a way to give this guy the death penalty and just stop this shit from happening again?
if you're gonna make any sort of testimony while you're sitting there as a witness, it's gonna be about facts. If you have any legal argument that you want to make, you can do that after your closing argument. After the prosecution closes their argument, you can ask that the jury be excused. You can make any motion that you want to at that time. I'll make that ruling, and then we can go back on the record with the jury. But sitting in the witness chair is not the time when you make a motion, when you're not going to be asking questions of the prosecutor, because he's not one of the people who you get to call as a witness.
The questions I have to ask them are relevant to a defense I have to raise. Some people don't have to raise it now.
Like I said, we'll do that outside of the presence of the jury, because we're not going to have the jury tainted by any sort of bias things you're going to be bringing up that are either frivolous or have nothing to do with the Constitution.
So let me ask a better question, perhaps, Your Honor. Mr. Martin, are there any other facts that you would like to tell the jury related to the questions that you just answered for the prosecutor?
Can't think of any. I reserve my right if I remember it later. I understand it right now.
No problem. Just want to make sure that there wasn't anything we were leaving out. Your Honor, I have no further questions for Mr. Martin or any other direct at this time.
Sure. Mr. Greco, any further cross?
Nothing, Your Honor.
Hi, Mr. Martin, you may step down. And Mr. Martin, do you have any other witnesses to call?
Well, yes, like I said, I'd like to question Greco here. Yeah, he's one of my witnesses for one of some of the relevant defense motions.
And you can't you can't call.
Right. Out as a precedent, whatever.
You can't call opposing counsel as a witness. So.
But I think
Any other
way due process.
It's not, it literally is not violating any of your due process whatsoever. So, do you have any other witnesses?
Oh, no. Let's rest our case.
Let's rest our case. Closing arguments. Mr. Greco?
Yes, Your Honor, very briefly, I'd like the jury to hear me out just a second, whether he is a person or a human being. I believe that the evidence showed that Eric Martin was traveling on a motor vehicle, a moped, in the city of Taylor on the late afternoon of July 11th, 2023, without a valid driver's license. In fact, The record here that you're going to be able to inspect is one, because exhibit number 1 shows that it was revoked. It says revoked at the top. You see the sanctions here from prior years, 2021, 2022, which pre-exist, predate the 2023, that it was in fact revoked. Regardless of this, he has admitted to you during his testimony that he did not have a valid license. He's admitted to you that the state of Michigan requires that persons are supposed to have a valid driver's license to drive on the road. He don't think that that applies to him. Once you hear the jury instructions, which he's already read to you, you're going to find the defendant guilty, and you should find the defendant guilty. There's no more case clearer than this. Thank you for your time. Do appreciate
There's
it.
no case clearer than this.
And Mr. Martin, your closing argument?
Yes, I have a lot, so let's see, start with. All right, and now she's showing this law to the jury here. So
First off, you're not going to show any law to the jury.
So not allowed to show how I'm not
Listen,
guilty.
sir, listen, I'm going to tell you, because I've told you 5 times, when it comes to the jury, their duty is to hear the facts. And it's my duty to instruct them on what the law is.
10 years hard labor.
Sir, I teach constitutional law for 20 years. I know exactly what I'm talking about. So it is my duty to instruct them on what the law in this case is. And the law in this case is there are certain elements, 3 elements. 1, that the individual is traveling or operating a motor vehicle. 2, on a public road or access road. And 3, they didn't have a license at the time, or the license was either suspended, revoked, or denied. Those are the 3 elements. Those are the law that that's the law that I'm going to explain to them. Any other law that you are trying to show is not for the jury, not to hear from you. You're not the one who has the duty to explain it to the jury. Okay? So if you think that you have a motion to dismiss, then this case would have already been dismissed. If your law that you wanted to point to was applicable, it would have already dismissed this case and we wouldn't even be in the jury trial. So if you want to make any sort of motions outside of the jury based on the law that you have in your hand, you're welcome to do so. I'll entertain said motion. But you're not going to be instructing the jury on this law here. Closing arguments is so that you can recap the facts and put your version of the facts on display at closing arguments. So if you'd like to do your closing argument, go ahead.
Well, this is part of my closing, so if I enter this as admission, my legal arguments as exhibits, then
Okay, so fuck whatever he's saying. I just looked it up. He was driving on a revoked license, so I'm assuming they charged it as a misdemeanor, not a felony. If it was a felony, it could be punished by up to 15 years in prison. Misdemeanor for the first time offense, either 93 days in jail or fines from $500 to $1,000 in community service. Personally, I think they should give him all 3 of those things maxed out, but that's just me.
no, don't I have the right to show them the law that supports that I am not guilty?
Sir, you have to follow the rules of evidence just like any other litigant has to. And all I'm required to do is make sure that you have every opportunity to put on a fair trial. You had the opportunity to be cross-examined, you had the opportunity to remain silent, you chose to testify. Your own co-counsel asked you a series of questions. He even asked you a very open-ended question. Is there any other fact that you want the jury to know about the date and time of the incident in particular? And you said, nope, nothing at this time. So you had every opportunity to show any other facts that you wanted to. So
okay, then if you're
just saying, this is the time. This is the time for your closing argument. This is where you recap the facts that were put into evidence. This is where you say things like, as the evidence showed, and then you say what your theory of the case is. This is not a legal argument. This is not a dissertation on legal philosophy. If you want to make that kind of motion, I'll do that outside of the presence of the jury so as to not taint the jury. You're literally tainting the jury right now just by trying to, or attempting to do so. And if you continue, I'm gonna
Maybe very briefly, Your Honor, I know we're to the end. This is going to change that.
Oh shit. No. Well, now I'm a little upset. It uploaded without like the last. Let's see what I can do here, folks. Let's see what I can do here. Did it really do that without the entire thing? God. Let me see here. Let me see the date. What's today? The 10th. So it would have been this morning at 2 a.m. Let me listen to this real quick and see something. Oh, God. That's annoying. All right, well, for some reason, it decided not to upload him getting convicted, which is rather bothersome. That bothers me. All right, well, we are experiencing technical difficulties for sure. I had the biggest problem downloading this in general. Yeah, so he was convicted. They weren't gone very long. They asked, hey, what do you guys think? They're like, guilty. God, I might put that out as a video. I don't know what happened to it. Yeah, it's clear that Mr. Martin is innocent of all charges. Yeah, thanks for the edging. Let me see here. I don't know if I can find the video, but I can possibly give you something. But it's going to take a Google, so bear with me. God, I might have to switch editors because this editing shit that I've been using has been just all over the place the last 2 weeks. Return to main page. Public case search. We're going to search the 23rd District Court. 23rd District Court. Taylor, Michigan. We're going to search Martin. Eric. And again, you guys are going to have to bear with me because he has 50,000 cases in Taylor. I guess I have to find one that's closed. That happened last year. Borg. Let's see this one. Nope. Yeah, he literally has 4 pages of nonsense. Scheduled for pre-sent. Okay, so I'm assuming that's his domestics. Nope, I think this just hates me now. All right, I'm not going to do that because it's wanting me to do extra shit. Hey, it is definitely that. I haven't been able to upload videos to my editor to actually edit them. I use Capwing, which isn't the best, but it gives me a lot for $20. Oh, Ruby, it seems like you've been watching videos about him and his moped for years now, because I want to say this took place in 2023. So it's literally been going on for like a year. All right. Well, it was a conviction for a flat tire and driving on a revoked license. DaVinci Resolve has a free version. I might have to check it out. Capwing was good while it lasted, but it's can't do shit. $20 a month. All right, so I will look into Eric Martin a little bit more here. So he got convicted of this, and he also has a domestic going on currently with his sister and another domestic going on with his brother, I want to believe. And his brother, that happened last week, a case for that. And Judge Slavin was just like, I can't hear you, show up on court. I want to say the 18th. He has to be in court with Judge Slavin. All right. That's it, guys. I'm sorry my editor let me down today. Did they hand down sentencing? No, if I recall, they basically said they were going to wait. And he already said, I'm going to appeal this, because all sovereign citizens and frauditors say they're going to appeal, but they rarely do. Does Judge Slavin have his own channel? I believe he has 23rd District Court Judge Slavin. Yep, he does, and I will do this, and hopefully this works. That's Judge Slavin's. It's the 23rd District Court, Judge Slavin's courtroom. Who is it? Judge Shackelford also has one. The appeal was dismissed. Hey, if it was, I wouldn't doubt it. All right. Cops are against BSBT, same as StreamYard is against KFAR. Hey, no joke. All right. I'm going to go back and finish. Well, not finish, because we're not almost finished, but I'm going to go back and keep packing. And hopefully we should be moved by the end of the month. So hopefully you guys enjoyed that Eric Martin nonsense. I really hope I never see Eric Martin in public or in general. Everybody have a good day. Hopefully the Lions win at 8 o'clock. Hopefully your football teams all win. Unless they're playing the Lions, which I believe it's the Texans this week, and they can get bent. I might stream tomorrow with a special guest for Veterans Day. If you see a thumbnail with a weird dude on there with me, that's the special guest, and I'll introduce a special guest tomorrow. And we might be pitching a new project as well tomorrow. So there you have it. Everybody have a good day. Oh, shit. I realized I can't do the outro thing to make sure that I don't get cut off. So I'm just going to end it here. Oh, Jennifer's here. Everybody say hi to Jennifer. All right. Bye.